Can I talk?
Hey, what's up? It's your girl Amirah from Femme Hip-Hop, and I'm here today with a special guest. Today I'm sitting with Mr. Ryan Toby, who is a multi-talented South Jersey songwriter and artist and actor and overall dope person. It's a pleasure. So a quick run through from his unforgettable role as Amal on Sister Act 2 to his groundbreaking time as being one-third of the group City High. Ryan's talent has shown very brightly and has set the standard for what it is to be a South Jersey artist. As a songwriter, he's penned hits for legends like Usher, Mary J. Blige, Jill Scott, Flowetry. The list goes on. So it's definitely a pleasure to have him here. You're definitely in for a treat. We're going to drop some gems for some independent artists who are watching, and let's just get into it. So, Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for doing this with me. It's definitely a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Like I've said, I've been really manifesting this because our artists in Jersey, they need this. They need to see that, artists who are successful, who make it out of Jersey, coming back and giving back and pouring back into those who are watching and being inspired by you guys. So thank you. Thank you. You don't know how much this is definitely going to be received from our community. Being a girl from Camden, I can always remember my mom telling me, don't drink the water, okay? Don't drink the water because of what might be floating inside of it. But I really want to know what's in the water in Willingboro, because if you really look into it, a lot of dope artists, musicians have come from Willingboro.
Absolutely.
So can you start off by telling me how Willingboro helped shape you as an artist at such a young age and really foster that sense of passion for music?
Yeah. I think Willingboro definitely has some magic in the water. I don't know if it's the location being right outside of Philadelphia, so close to Philly, so you got the Philly soul sound influence. We're an hour and a half south of New York, so you got the New York, obviously, hip-hop and everything else. For me, growing up in the 80s, hip-hop was a budding new genre. So the Run DMCs and all of that stuff was coming out of New York, the Salt and Peppers and all of that, the dancing, the break dancing, the graffiti, all of this, the fashion. You got that coming from New York. Then you got Philly and everything coming out of Philly, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince and Cool C and like everything like that. I don't know what it is about Willingboro. The way my parents explained it back in the late 60s and 70s and stuff like that, Willingboro was this new suburb that, black people could buy a house. So this influx of black people coming from the city to, move out to the suburbs, give their kids a better life. Middle class folks, you could afford to buy a house in a nice suburb in a nice community with, summer programs and summer camp and swimming pools and public pools and different things like that. And so it was just this perfect little utopia, if you will. Sort of like what Atlanta is, how black folks can just be out there and really thrive and live good and kind of like get out the projects, you know what I mean? But that hood element is right there, though.
Yes, right there.
So, but I think, as a part of the culture, that hood element is where that's where the style, that's where the fashion, that's where the vibe, that's where the lyrics, the dances, a lot of the talent comes from the hood, you know what I mean? But being that we were in this sort of safe zone where you could explore your talents safely, you know what I mean? It's not like you stepping over crack pipes every day and getting robbed and stuff every day.
In the trenches.
Yeah, so it gave you space. It gave young kids space to explore other things and other talents. And you could carry a saxophone to school and not necessarily get beat up for it. You know what I mean? Or not have to choose between band class or, gangbanging.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Things have changed a lot in the city now. I hate to say a little bit for the worse, but it's getting better. But in the 80s, late 70s, and in the 80s and the 90s, oh my gosh, we also had music programs that were thriving in Willingboro. It was just normal public school, but you would think it was a performing arts high school.
Right.
It's just no, it was a regular public school, but the music program was very robust. The jazz band and theater and I mean it was great traveling theater, groups and traveling jazz band groups going into jazz competitions. It was just really great, and I really love my city and coming up for that. We also had a lot of superstar athletes come out of Willingboro too.
Really?
So absolutely. Yeah.
Who was a teacher at your high school that was that left the imprint on your career so early that manifested into what it is today?
Yeah. Oh man, that's easy. So there was a white teacher named Dr. Dorman who ran the regular theater and choir class. It was just normal theater and choir class, nothing special, not like a separate performing arts, nothing. It was just choir class. She ran that, and the show choir was called show choir. So Dr. Dorman did that. She left a major imprint, and so many talented singers came through her doors. And then there was Miss Sharon Lightsey. Miss Lightsey ran the Black Heritage Choir, which was a gospel choir that performed every Black History Month. So that was like a more curated, Black gospel choir that was in our school, and we did rehearsals and stuff after school, and then we put on the big Black Heritage play every year during Black History Month. So between those two, Dr. Dorman and Miss Sharon Lightsey, you better get your skills up.
yes. That's amazing that you have someone that you can remember and making impressions on young students. It's everything. Absolutely. Because they're literally going to take that example and carry that and allow that to be the example and the standard for how they grow themselves and mature themselves in a professional way.
Absolutely.
So also being influenced by people at school and the school culture, I understand that you have background in the church.
Of course.
Now, I seen on your interview R&B Money with Tank. Y'all was cutting up. Let me just say that was almost 3 hours of cutting up. And Tank is alive. If you've ever listened to his albums, those little skits in between, gosh.
That's my boy.
Yes, like you could definitely tell the brotherhood was in the room.
Yeah.
Now, you guys talked about church and its influence on R&B music.
Yeah.
That's always been a topic in Jersey. What's missing from R&B music today?
Yeah.
And a lot of us are saying, look, church.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned in that interview, because church and the culture at church was so hypercritical, it really fostered a sense of perfectionism in artists. So let's touch a little bit about that. What is your take on R&B today and if it's missing the church?
I agree wholeheartedly. I've been saying it for years,
Okay.
But because I remember the change. I remember because I was writing for so many different artists at the time, and I remember, just being in the game for 30 plus years, where coming out of church, learning how to sing in church, and coming from the church as an R&B artist was almost like a prerequisite to getting a record deal. That was one of the first things an A&R or an executive would ask you when you go to a meeting. Like, so you grew up singing in church, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, grew up singing in church. That it was like you grew up singing. It was the standard.
Yep.
And that's how you. That's where you honed your skills. That's where you honed your craft. That's where you got your chops up. And then you could transition into R&B, because really pop R&B, mainstream R&B has always just been gospel music with secular lyrics. That is what R&B is.
It is.
You know what I mean?
It is.
Going all the way back to Ray Charles and Jackie Wilson, and you know what I mean? These are, it make me want to shout.
Yeah. Come on now. Yep.
Okay. That was just the prerequisite. It was normal, but I remember all of a sudden, as I'm working with different artists, young artists coming through over the years, and then I would ask that question, like, so you grew up singing in church? It's like, nah. Like, really? You didn't have to go to choir rehearsal. You didn't have to go to, 3 times a week. You didn't have to go to this and go to that.
He's like, no work here.
And then it was like this, I think R. Kelly started ushering in the R&B thug phase.
Oh, yeah.
So R&B became less about soul, gospel, the spirit, you know what I mean? The anointing and all these different words, you know, it became less about that and it became more of a thugged out type of image and sound and hip-hop sound. Hip-hop started taking over more. And and it just started to change, and you know, so the sound it just started to change so much, and then it was less about singing, and it was more about this thug image and this street appeal, and this thug appeal just took over more.
So that you're definitely right about, you know, the sound of R&B shifting from hip hop. You know, it definitely shifted the culture in a way that, God, I wish we could go back to old days, right? So let's jump back into 1993 when you played Amal on Sister Act 2.
Right.
Now, what was it like being so young and working with Whoopi Goldberg in her prime, Cheryl Lee Ralph, Lauryn Hill, who, by the way, had just began gaining notoriety with the Fugees. Yeah. What was it like being a young man in that setting?
It was terrifying.
I bet.
It was terrifying, you know, exciting. I was green, you know what I mean? I was just a kid. My first time in LA, first time on a movie set, first time, you know, acting really in any capacity outside of, you know, school plays and, you know, church recitals and stuff like that. Yeah. So that it was very it was scary, you know. But I had to grow up really fast and learn the ropes, and it was really, really exciting too, you know, just to see the level of production that goes into, you know, a major motion picture. Yeah. You know what I mean? I went from, you know, like I said, some little rinky-dinky church play to like
the big leagues.
$50 million budget.
Talk about it.
So yeah, it was a very, very very great experience for me. Yeah.
I bet, you know, like $50 million, that, and then, you know, after the first one, it's a lot of pressure, you know, because they want that second one to supersede the first. And
absolutely.
So now initially, Sister Act didn't get the recognition or the appraise that it should have gotten.
Not in theaters.
Not until it became like a cult classic. You're seeing it on TNT. You're seeing it on TV. You're seeing it. So once it became like that cult classic in the Black family home, you know, it really, you know, skyrocketed and got the notoriety that it deserved. Now, you know, some in the industry called it, you know, a flop.
Yeah.
Considered, you know, compared to its prequel. Now, how do you feel that role as Amal influenced you or inspired you after playing? Or like, what did you learn from that experience of it all? Because I'm sure that you put your, you know, this was your first movie, and you put your all into that role, and then to see, you know, headlines, and what was that like for you?
It was really interesting because immediately after wrapping the film, I just went back to school. I was back in Willingboro. Nothing magical happened.
Yeah.
And then the film came out. I think it came out in November '93. We shot from like April, May, June. I think about 3 months we shot it. And then of '93, April, May, June. Summertime, I go back home. I think I went back home and then went to school. And I was in the 11th grade, and then school was normal, and then the movie came out in November. And I thought it was going to be like this big holiday smash and change my life, and I would turn into this big superstar, but that's not what happened. I mean, I went to the theater, saw it with friends and family and stuff like that, and people liked it.
You didn't go to the red carpet?
No.
Wait, hold on. Now that you said that, let's backtrack a little bit. Because I watched a special where they talked about what it was like on set. And was it true that the seniors that were on set they missed their graduation to film that?
Yeah, a couple of them. Lauren missed her graduation. David Cater missed his graduation.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 2 students that missed their graduation.
So y'all literally, like, those crucial moments you dedicated to this film. Yeah. And I'm sure it created some sort of self-doubt after, people doubting the turnout and, looking at the box office numbers. And what did that do to you?
I didn't really, that's a good question. I was too young to really care about box office numbers and stuff like that. I was too naive to the game and the business and the amount of money that was being spent and like all of that stuff. I was just happy to be there and, just singing and rapping and, getting dressed and going to wardrobe and catering every day. And, the food was good. Like, you know what I mean? It was just fun running around, hanging out with Lauren and stuff like that. I wasn't, when it was the film wrapped and all of that, I didn't even think about like, oh man, is this gonna go number 1? Is it gonna be bigger than the first one? Didn't even think about any of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was supposed. I didn't know what was supposed to happen. It's my first time, so it's not like I had
any expectations.
of anything. I didn't even really fully grasp that we were making a film. It was like, it's almost like us doing this interview. We're not thinking that we're going to do anything or anything that's going to happen that's going to go viral and then we're going to be like, we're not thinking that. We're just sitting there having a conversation.
Exactly.
And we're like, oh yeah, we're going to, make a nice video. We're going to put it out. We're going to have a great conversation, ask some questions, laugh, and that's it.
Yeah.
Neither one of us we don't really have any expectations. So that's how I felt going into that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't mess up.
Yeah.
Just don't mess up. Like, don't mess up your lines. Don't, because you will get yelled at.
Yeah. $50 million.
That happened a couple of times, you know what I mean? So.
And that's the beauty of that experience and you being able to tell that, because it shows that you are able to just live in the moment and just enjoy every step of the way, the hiccups, the errors, the getting yelled at. You were able to enjoy it, and you have a sense of like the smile on your face when you're talking about it. It's like you really enjoyed that time in your life. So that's beautiful. Now let's go back to the 5-year gap that you took in between Sister Act and then the next big break. What was life for you within that 5-year hiatus? Did you manifest? Like what did you do?
Manifest, that word didn't exist. That's a new word.
Hold on, it's a new word. It's a millennial word.
That's a new word in the lexicon right now being thrown around.
Listen, we better not. Look, we gotta go old school, mirror. Old school.
No, the word that comes to mind when I think about that time was stress. I was stressed out because then I was hearing things of like, oh man, like, well, you're an actor now. Like, I wasn't even thinking about being an actor, I was just a little kid, from Willingboro that could sing, and I had my manager, and he was taking me to New York trying to get a record deal, and so I didn't know what was supposed to happen, but after the film, and then the film came out, and it was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm an actor now. I got to get an agent. I got to start going on auditions. Like, I'm a professional now, you know what I mean? So then there was a level of expectation that started coming. So I started doing some auditions, did a couple little small things, did like an Adidas commercial and like a little cameo or little small things, nothing major. And then I started getting stressed out, like, oh, what's going on? I thought I was gonna be able to land this record deal I've been trying to get the whole time. But record labels were like, I was always like one meeting too late. Like, oh man, if you would have got here last week, we just signed Jason Weaver.
Oh,
if you would have got here last week, we just signed this, and some kid named so. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, so that started hurt. That hurt, and that went on for some years. I didn't know where my life was going. I didn't blow up to become some big superstar from the movie like I thought. So that was pretty hurtful as a young man. And then I was like, okay, well, now we're about to graduate high school. All my smart friends were going to college. I wasn't like the super smart kid in school. So I'm like, oh, well, I can't really get into college. So I just went into the first school that would accept me. Just to say I went to college.
The struggle.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just go anywhere, they'll take you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I tried that for a little while. Went down to Grambling State, but that wasn't really for me. So after about a semester of that, I came back to Jersey, and then I got linked up with an ex-girlfriend actually who could really sing. And I saw her, and we kind of like reconnected, and she was like, "Yeah, you should come with me down to the studio with Jazzy Jeff." And I was like, "Oh, where's Jeff's studio?" This was in Philly, so started going to Jazzy Jeff's studio, and then things started to turn around. Things started to really turn around for me.
This is beautiful. I love how this conversation is seamlessly going into each question. And I might add that little snippet about the ex-girlfriend, and I've never heard that before. So, have you ever said that?
No, her name was Tia.
Oh,
shout out to Tia.
Shout out to Tia.
For sure.
Yes, so
the truth. Yeah.
That 5 years of self-discovery, and then you meeting an old friend, and then getting into the presence of Philly legend, Jazzy Jeff.
Yeah.
And working in A Touch of Jazz.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Like, it's different because, like you say, you were shooting for getting signed by a label, and I'm sure you wanted to be an R&B artist, but then you kind of made your way into this hip-hop environment. Now, what was it like, stepping into that new change at A Touch of Jazz?
That's a really good question. Jeff's studio, I mean, it's in the name. It was Touch of Jazz studio, so it wasn't as hip hop as you think. He was in, obviously in a rap group, but the environment that he curated at his studio was extremely musical. It was that Philly soul sound. It was the neo soul sound before the neo soul. They were creating it. I watched them create that sound, that neo soul sound that took over the world. You know what I mean?
I love it.
They were working on a young Jill Scott that was coming through the studio.
Ryan, don't tell me that. You know what I mean? Don't tell me that, Ryan.
Young Glenn Lewis is coming through the studio. And like he had Janae at one point. Like Jeff, everybody was coming through there, So Jeff's camp became my college.
Wow.
And also too, like during that time, I wasn't just like sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I was doing a lot of theater work at that time. I was working at a studio in New York called Double Fat, so I was going up there a lot, recording, just trying to find my way. And then, so by the time I got to Jeff's, it wasn't like a shock. I was ready. I was like,
that's right.
She was like, "You want to come to the studio?" I'm like, "Hell yeah." You know what I mean? And by the time I got down there, and I'm meeting a young Dre Vidal and young Carvin Higgins and Ivan, and like I was with the
big boy.
All let's do this. There was like, okay, what's up, Jeff? Yeah, what we doing?
He was hungry.
I wanted. How can I be down? You know what I mean? And those guys, they embraced me. They allowed me into. Everybody was young. Everybody was young, and you go in this room and they in there making this, working on this. You go over this room and. It was all legends, all goats in the making.
Wow.
But everybody was young. So it was like just this vibe, like this just young, what you hear about Motown stories. Like you got young Stevie Wonder in that room and little Michael Jackson running around. And, you know what I mean? Then you got a young, cute Diana Ross back here cutting a new single, and this one over here, Marvin Gaye is it. But they was all young. They was just all trying to get it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it was that same type of energy. And I just, I appreciate Jeff so much for opening his doors to us. I mean, we were kids, man, and we were learning how to make real music that was going to be on the radio. Classics.
Yeah.
Classics.
Yeah.
Is this the way? Like, what? Niggas was cooking. Young.
Chef Steve with the pot.
Young.
Chef Curry with the pot.
Listen, General So's. Like, niggas was in that one. Like.
Yo, this interview is so Jersey. So, let's kind of veer off real quick. Because I love hypothetical questions. We're at Bridgeport right now. Home of the Goldies. What would it take? What would it take today in order to have that level of camaraderie and collaboration? Like, what would you say needs to happen with artists today? What's some advice that you can give them to create a setting like what A Touch of Jazz was? Because, a lot of creatives, because we're like scratching and striving to make it to the top, we got our own things going on. And sometimes we miss the opportunity or the importance of collaboration. So why is that important to just have that, to lock in, to all lock in, and literally, you know, focus on all, we're all going to make it out. We're all going to put that work in. We're all hungry.
Yeah.
Let's collab.
Well, it's important because there's strength in numbers. You know, no man is an island unto himself. So you could be the dopest thing ever, but you're doing it all by yourself. And I could be the dopest thing ever, but I'm doing it all by myself. I mean, if we link up, obviously there's more, we can do way more damage.
Yes.
And you see it, you see it in, you know, like in Atlanta music culture, they support each other. They pull up to each other's thing. They in each other's sessions. They're featured on each other's records. You see it in the South. You see it in different areas. I just think that the East Coast, a little bit, I don't want to get in trouble, but it's like,
say it.
We smell ourselves a little too much.
Okay.
Way too much.
Okay.
And we don't have a collective, we don't have like a collective struggle. It's like, I'm doing my thing, you doing your thing. Back in the day, you know what I mean? It was like, you know, New York, LA, and just the South. Anywhere in the South, we from the South, we all have the same struggle. We're from the South and we're trying to make it out by any means necessary. You understand what I'm saying? In the East Coast, like, oh, I'm from Brooklyn, so I can't deal with, like, but we all from New York. Or
exactly.
I'm from North Philly, I'm from South Philly, I'm from Camden, I can't deal with you.
We all from the East Side.
But we all from the East Side.
Right.
Like, you know, so I just think in order to have that today, it takes humility, number one, and I think if we could just all, you know, if young artists can just find like a common goal and a common vision, like what's the common vision? If you just got your own vision and I got mine and I'm so much in competition with you that we don't have a common goal, then I don't think you'll ever have that. Like when we were in Touch of Jazz, there was one common goal, and it was to impress Jeff.
Wow. Because
Jeff was the guy, you know what I mean? Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Jeff, he, you know, made his millions off the group, and he used to tell us the story all the time. He was like, you know, Will had aspirations to take it to Hollywood. That wasn't necessarily Jeff's dream. Jeff's dream was to always come back home to Philly and to build something in Philly. That was always his dream. So he came home, he built this $1 million facility, and then he opened his doors to young talent to come through. So it was always, we would cook up songs and ideas and stuff for the creative meetings when Jeff would come. Jeff's coming. That was the buzz around the studio. Jeff is on his way. He gonna check this joint out. I told Jeff what we did last night. He's coming. Yeah. So the goal and the bar, and it drove us all to be great. So even though we had friendly competition amongst each other, like, damn, I peeked in her room, she cooking up something crazy. Yeah. Yo, we gotta go back. We gotta, you know, because Jeff's coming.
Y'all sharpening each other.
Yeah, we were sharpening. He was the bar, similar to, you know, what Puff had back in the day at Daddy's house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He had the Hitmen, and same thing. Barry Gordy created that with Motown. You understand what I'm saying? It was supposed to be a factory. And we're all working together. We're all pulling our resources and our creative, you know what I mean, our ideas and all of that we're all trying to get Diana Ross a hit.
Yeah.
Because it's about Motown. It's about Motown. It's about hit. It's about Bad Boy. It's about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about Cash Money. Like, you know, so we got to ask ourselves, what's the common goal? Do we have a common goal, or are we just all separate and doing our own little thing?
That's crazy that you mentioned, you know, Barry Gordy. I watched a documentary where they were talking about how he was heavily influenced by Ford.
Exactly.
And the manufacturing of cars, like each part made this car and the assembly line. So you saying that, you know, you're good at this, you're good at that, and coming together and creating this big, you know, collective, you know, is definitely was successful for many of those different companies,
Absolutely.
Bad Boy,
Absolutely.
Motown, Cash Money.
All of them. Death
all
Row,
of them.
You name it.
All of them.
All
Any collective that has successfully had conglomerates just spewed out,
Absolutely.
that's what it took.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned a big name, Big Willie,
Mm-hmm.
Big Willie Style,
Mm-hmm.
is, was a big project that you worked on. For me, I would say because you're coming right after the Men in Black.
Yes.
Which was my jam as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the whole dance.
Mm-hmm.
Men in Black, and then I seen in an interview you mentioned something that was so important, that he was shifting into Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like, okay, Will, you got so big that now you want to, we listen to Bad Boy now. You know what I'm saying? So this was Will's, shot of saying, yo, don't count me out. I still got it. Like, when you look at the project in itself, just the two of us. Like, that was such a beautiful song. The video, back then, videos were important.
Yes.
Having his son in that video, it was just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Then you have Miami, which was like, you're sampling, and the beat goes on. You have so many Get Jiggy With It, where it's like, oh, he's stepping in Bad Boy lane now. Because I can remember watching that video and, like, I couldn't tell who was Puffy or who was Will. Like, he was stepping in the lane like, oh, shit. Excuse my language. The Fresh Prince? Okay, he a bad boy now. All right. So I think Puffy kind of felt like a little competition with that. But working on the song Miami, and I'm sure you've worked on other songs on that project, what was that like for you, just being a part of that?
It was very interesting because I wasn't thinking about writing for Will Smith. I was working with Jeff. I was signed there as an artist, so I was making songs for my own album. For my, I was trying to get a record deal, so for my demo and stuff like that. And Jeff was, actively trying to shop me a deal. I was still on my mission to get a record deal. So I wasn't really thinking about Will, but I could sing and rap at that time, which was rare. Like, this is before the Drakes and all of those. So an artist that sang and rap was kind of almost like confusing to record labels. Yep. So a lot of them were like, pick a lane, and I was like, but I don't want to pick a lane. I want to do both. And so when Jeff was like, well, listen, we can sell some of these songs while you're trying to get your record deal. And I did not want to do that, but Jeff really helped me understand the power of being able to, going back to, seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Right? So like I was saying earlier, if I'm so busy doing my thing that I can't contribute to your thing, then I may be missing out. Instead of me saying, well, hey, why don't we come together? You know what I mean? I'll contribute to your thing, and then we could blow up bigger. And so that's what Jeff helped me to understand. And so I was like, all right, cool. I'll write songs for Will. You know what I mean? And so I gave Jeff was like, yo, let's give him, there was this song called I Loved Her, I think it's called. And Will liked that one, and he came down, he recorded it. And then he was like, well, yo, man, you want to do another one? I was like, yeah. So we came up with another one. I wrote another one like on the spot with my boy Keith. He produced it. We co-produced that together. And then he was like, you want to come to LA with me? I'm going to go work with Snoop Dogg and Warren G.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah. So it got real with Will because I knew him as we knew him as Fresh Prince, West Philadelphia.
Yep.
And I was just like, I don't want to write. Like, man, this is the Bad Boy era.
And plus you young.
Rockefeller, this Wu-Tang, this DMX. Like, I just could. I was like, But when I met Will, I was like, oh, wow, this is like Will Smith. He's a movie star now. He's transitioning, like you said, into a bigger Hollywood star. So, it's not really the goofy. It's like, oh, this nigga's a real movie star.
Real deal.
And as humility is key. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure I stress that to your audience and to young creatives, man. Like, I get it. You're dope. But humble yourself. There could be something greater for you if you humble yourself and you allow God to maybe take you down roads and paths or link you with people that you wouldn't think to link with because you so caught up in yourself and my vision and my art, and my song, my. It's a gift. You have a gift, and gifts are meant to be given.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of a gift. You give it to somebody.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I bought you this.
Thank you.
And it's like, right?
Thank you.
So, in humbling myself, listening to my OG, listening to Jeff, you know, I'm meeting Will, and then Will is like, yo, you want to come to LA, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I want to go to LA. And he's like, all right, cool. We're leaving tonight. And I'm just like, oh, well, don't I gotta go pack? And he's like, man, you gotta worry about that. I got the jet. And I was like,
okay.
Oh, this is real.
Energy.
Like,
period.
This is like,
yeah.
You
flew
feel
out.
me?
He get flew out. Well,
like on the PJ, like
yes,
with him and Jada Pinkett, like
hold up, pause.
You know what I'm saying?
Pause. Gotta say that, you know, because this generation nowadays. But yeah, Will, just the generosity, you know, like not a lot of people are like that. You know, like he's seen something in you, and and it's kind of like a vision of foresight because looking how your career ended up, it's like. Y'all aren't too different from each other, like acting, hip hop, you know. Yeah. So it's like he's seen something in you. Yeah. He put that seed in you, and you were able to be, you know, humble. Yeah. You had that character. You clearly were raised right, because I know so many people that, you know, if they were to judge someone based off of, you know, misunderstanding on their career, they'd be like, oh, I don't want to work with Will. Like he's corny. Like
that's what I said to him in the beginning.
Oh.
I did do that.
Oh.
I did.
God must have spanked you real quick, and
you know
got
what?
back in line.
I remember when Jeff called me, and he said, "Hey man, I was playing your songs for Will. Will came back. Because he said it so nonchalant that it didn't really click. You understand what I'm saying? And this is in the beginning of I wasn't like a ghost writer yet. I wasn't like in the mind frame of a professional songwriter. Right. I'm still just
hungry
kid running around trying to get my record deal going. I did a little movie, but it ain't changed my life. So I'm trying to get my thing going. What's up with me though? You trying to get my deal? What we doing? Like I'm still very much in that space. I was not. Jeff taught me the headspace of no, bro. You are a writer. You're a professional writer. Different artists come in. You can write songs for this one, pen songs for this one. Let that fly. Okay, cool. Because this helps build a catalog for you. Yes. And then it gives you more leverage and bargaining power when you get ready to go into a record label to negotiate your deal. You can say, yeah, I did this, and I did that for so-and-so. So if I can do that for them, imagine what I can do for myself. Jeff taught me that game. I didn't know that game right off the bat. I was just a kid that wanted to sing, wanted to get my own stuff popping. So I didn't understand the value in collaboration like that. You understand what I mean? I was young. So he taught me that, and he was using, you know, references like, you know, Missy Elliott and different people like, look, man, you know, Missy did, you know, Gina Thompson, and she wrote for Total, and she wrote for Aaliyah, and she wrote for all these different people, bro, and then she got popping. And I was like, oh, okay, I see. You know what I mean? And so Jeff helped me understand that. So then by the time Will came, I was still a little stubborn. I was still like, well, all right, fine, you know, I'll give him my song, but I got to be there when he recorded. Like, like, who am I? Like, I got to be there when he recorded. And then when I got there and I met him, and he was so cool and humble, but the magnitude of what he was very much on him, and I was able to see, like, he never had the flex. He was the flex. And that changed my whole persona of what, like, okay, Ryan, what are we really doing? Yeah. Because he's really that guy. And I'm seeing it now. We about to get on the plane that Tommy Mottola let him have to record the album, like the plane Mariah used to fly around in. His little girlfriend that's running around the studio is Jada Pinkett, nigga. What? Like, relax. And he ain't have on no jewelry. He didn't have on no extra nothing. Jada, he wasn't trying to be no thug. He was very much himself. Jada wrote about that. You know what I mean? Will would say stuff like, I remember one time he was like, man, you know, he said, you know, I get it. You know, rappers this is like at the height of like the money thug rap era, you know, when everybody's trying to be, you know, so-and-so Gambino, and like everybody got like an Italian mafia name, and like just OD thug, drug dealer, dope boy rap, you know?
And I'm just
Will was like, yeah, he was like, I never felt like I needed to do all of that. He was like, you know, he said, I know I'm corny. He was like, I accepted my corniness a long time ago.
Wow.
He was like, I just told myself I'll be richer than all them and have the baddest wife. And I was like,
dang. So let's go back, because you touched on it a little bit. While at A Touch of Jazz, you were, you know, striving and working for your own project. And then it didn't end up materializing.
Right.
So I'm sure that was a lot to intake at the time.
Absolutely.
So how did you handle it? Did you take that experience and use it as like a battery fuel for your journey? Like, what taste did that experience leave on you?
It's interesting. Just I know I've done a lot of interviews, but talking about it over and over again, you really you really get the depth and understanding even deeper.
Yeah.
Because I'm zapped back to that time, and I just think about the invaluable lesson that I learned from Jeff, from Will, from my career, being around these big superstars, and like what it really takes to make it. You have to know the art of the pivot. You have to be able to pivot. You have to know, okay, I'm going in this direction, but maybe that's not really working, or it's working to a certain point, and then, but this window opens, this door closed, but that window, is that a crack in the window right there? Pivot, you know what I mean? Then you get to the window and you can get a little bit, but then you're like, oh, but hold on, I think I hear something over there. Is this another door opening right here? Pivot, and then you go over there. Or maybe I need to add this skill set to my arsenal. Maybe I thought I was going to be a journalist, but in my pursuit of being a journalist, I started writing scripts. You know what I mean? And then, okay, I'm writing scripts, but then in my pursuit of trying to get a script placed somewhere, I started taking pictures now, and now I'm like a photographer. So just knowing how to pivot, knowing how to stay humble, to how God or the universe is leading you, and then knowing how to take advantage of opportunities that you may not have seen coming, but you got to stay open to however the universe can bring it. I wasn't looking to be an actor, and I got in a movie. I wasn't looking to be a ghostwriter for people, and then I was writing with one of the biggest artists in the world, biggest superstars in the world. You understand? Yeah. I wasn't even looking to really be down with I wasn't looking to be in a group. I didn't want to be in a group. Mm-hmm. But then I end up, having classic songs with the group. You know what I mean? That's pretty legendary. People talk about it 25 years later.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Don't worry. So, before we leave 93, 98, let's talk about, because you mentioned working with Carvin and Ivan. Dran Vidal. Mm-hmm. What was that camaraderie like? What was that brohood like?
Oh my God.
Like, I'm sure y'all got some crazy stories. If you could think of one crazy story that could laugh my head off, like I could use a good laugh.
A lot of roasting.
Ooh.
Oh boy, a lot of roasting. I feel like
we good for that.
We were either making songs or just chopping each other up, man. The comedic level of just like roasting each other, it created such a brotherhood and such a bond. And it, roast culture, if you come from like a family or a neighborhood or a high school where roasting, we really did that. Like some people crack jokes, and then some cats like, listen, bro, it's gonna be an hour. We breaking down your hair,
somebody crying at the end of it. Somebody fighting.
So I come from real roast culture.
Yes,
you know
talk
what I mean?
About it.
And what's interesting? Something I learned that contributed to my writing skills because it forces you to be quick, it forces you to be witty, and it forces you to not be married to one idea. Because if you say a joke, You try to crackle somebody, that shit don't land. You gotta hurry up,
and
pivot, and go on something else. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, nah, bro, you reaching. You like, well, look at your hairline. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? So being around those guys, it was like, it's like it teaches you to be quick-witted, and you need that. You need that in this game. And also, too, bigger than all of that, it teaches you to be thick-skinned. And that's something that you need to make it in the entertainment industry.
Yep.
You have to have thick skin. You cannot take yourself so seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so, you know, but as far as stories, there's a lot of, I would have to give it some thought because there's really too many. And then I got to make sure it's something that, you know, statute of limitations.
We'll start part two. We'll bring Ryan back on once he gathers his thoughts together. Because I'm sure that y'all had some wild times. I'm pretty sure.
Gosh, super wild times.
Before we take this bus off of this stop and go to the next one, you know, working with, you know, Jill Scott, writing for Floetry, you know, just writing for Will, and learning how to hone in on your songwriting skills by playing the backfield, the back scenes, and, you know, really, you know, understanding what it takes to, you know, one, just, you know, have that humble approach to your journey. You know that you got it. You know that you're the one. Like, everybody feels that way about themselves, but knowing when to take the back seat and just learn. You know, I'm sure that was something that really cultivated you as an artist. Mm. Now, in hindsight, knowing that background that you had, and then seeing where it took you to City High era, you know, having that neo-soul experience, that hip-hop experience, clashing it, you could definitely see that influence in City High. Yeah. From the pictures that you got, the shades and the leather jackets, the hats, and then hearing a song, and then it's like, wait, this neo-soul, this storytelling, this is hip-hop, like, what is this? Like, you definitely see how neo-soul and hip-hop kind of, like, created this current with City High, and, you know, that's where I want to take it to now. Okay. So, I'm sure that after working with Sister Act and, you know, being signed by A Touch of Jazz and going through what you went through, you're now in this opportunity of having your own group, being a 1/3 of a member of, you know, this group. Mm-hmm. What was it like a 360 moment for you to kind of like, you know, it's not a solo career, but it's like you're doing what you know you wanted to do. Like, what was that like, having that 360 moment? Like, what was it like? The opportunity of having your group.
I feel like it didn't really feel like full 360. It didn't feel like that. It felt like another new opportunity. Because, you know, you can have this idea. We all have this idea of what we want to be. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going to be the next whatever, or I'm going to be a this, and whatever that this is, right? And then, you know, life has a funny way of, on your journey to that, it stops you off over here, and it stops you off over there, and you never saw yourself as maybe a parent. You never saw yourself as a husband. You never saw yourself, you know what I mean? You was chasing other things. But when City High came about, I still was like, all right, this isn't exactly what I want. It's just a new opportunity. And by the time the group came along, I was starting to get into this rhythm of the pivot. Like, okay, I'm looking at this door, but on my way to that door, this window opens up. This curtain opens up, and there's a hallway down here. And then I take the hallway, and you know what I mean? And I just got used to these, like, offshoots and different avenues, you know what I mean, on the main road. So when City High came along, my goal was and I'm working with 2 people, and I gotta and I was, you know, pretty much the main songwriter and stuff like that. I was the oldest one in the group. So it was like, all right, I gotta do my best to make sure we're good. Yeah. Make sure we got that heat. Make sure these songs are fire when we play them for people. Make sure we giving that energy. Making sure our stage show looks correct. Making sure we sound good, you know. And so it just was a new opportunity for me because I'm the youngest in my family. I'm the baby of like 6 boys, so I got 5 older brothers. So, but now I'm in this position where, and then when I was at Touch of Jazz, a lot of the guys were older than me. You know, even in Sister Act 2, most of the cast was older than me. Everybody, you know what I mean? Except for like Jennifer Love Hewitt was the only one younger than me.
Okay.
She and I were like the youngest cast members. Everybody else was grown. They was in their 20s and they just looked young, you know?
Right.
So I was always used to people being older than me. So this opportunity with City High, I was the oldest one. I was like the big brother, if you will. So I looked at it like it was a new adventure to kind of like have these younger people under me, and like I'm kind of like, you know, steering the ship just a little bit, you know what I mean, from a creative standpoint. So I just took it as a brand new opportunity. It was, you know, I didn't really know what I was getting into. You know, my lawyer didn't want me to do it. He was like, Ryan, you'll make more money writing and producing for this group than you will being in it. I never forget that. But I was like, yeah, but you know, I needed the money at the time, and you know, Jerry Wonder was throwing me some bread, so
okay. Listen.
Yeah.
So City High had such an amazing run.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, from making those iconic anthems that you guys did to just overall, I, in my opinion, those hits that came out of the work that you guys did was so authentic, and it gelled because of that friendship.
Yeah.
You know, that friendship that we could hear, your fans could hear. Yeah. That understanding that all 3 of your minds, you know, being from Willingboro or being from this area, you know, you guys shared that same mindset of what needed to be in that music to touch those people. So let's talk about what would you do. First of all, I personally want to say thank you. Because, you know, your upbringing being from Willingboro, but then my upbringing being from Camden is 2 different things. And that song really humanized a lot of us from the trenches because we grew up seeing that. We grew up having a sister who was a stripper or who had to sell herself because that was the only means, you know, she thought that she could have to have a better life. Like, we grew up seeing that. So contrary to what media put out there, like that negative connotation about people from the hood, y'all took that story, humanized it, and you forced your fans to really see us. So I want to say thank you because that song still, it's almost like that effect that people say Tupac. When you would hear it, it was almost like a horror film. Because the passion that he sung with and the content that he was, Brenda's having a baby and that stuff shook mainstream. Hearing, you know, boys and girls, let me tell you a story. And then, it's this horror film. It's like, what? You guys really humanized us. So talk about why did you choose that approach of going over the Black experience and putting it on your records? Why was that so important for you guys? And particularly for that hit?
First of all, I want to say thank you for your kind words about that song. It's so funny to me that, you know, we did have a good run. It was short though. It was like, but it was like legendary. I'm about
to drop something on y'all. I'm about to drop something on you in a minute. So keep that thought. But I'm about to say something that's about to shift your whole mindset on, because y'all had a little run. But I'm gonna show you how big that run ended up being. But keep going.
So it's just it's mind blowing to me that, you know, we only had 2 singles that were released, but they were really huge. Our run was very short but very impactful, and the longevity of it for people to be talking about it, you know, 20 years later, even people dissecting the song. You know, it's funny to me. People make the comical memes and stuff like, yo, we was dancing to this song. It's so dark.
Like what?
Like what was we even dancing to? Like, or like, yo, how was he judging the girl? And the whole conversation of what people talk about. That was the point of the song, to create that conversation. It was to expose or to shed light on how society judges young girls that go through things and judges people for doing what they got to do to get by. It was that whole juxtaposition, that opposed position of like, oh, your girl, the video starts off, Lonnie's a hoe. Like, just the mindset, that judgmental mindset of like, before he even knows what she got going on. But then, Claudette is, my girl ain't no hoe. She doing what she got to do. And what would you do? That's the whole point. It's a question.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yep.
You know what I mean? We're so quick to cast judgment and throw people aside, and you know what I mean? So it was really, I didn't even, to be honest, I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh yeah, I knew, I had this epiphany of what the culture needed. It wasn't even that deep.
Yeah.
I was just, it kind of came from a semi-true story, and it was compelling because, I really was at a party and like, oh, snap, that's so-and-so from, damn, what's up, girl? How you been? Like, what you doing? Yeah. And when she ran it down to me, I was like, oh my God, I gotta write about that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that was just kind of like my, that was my writing style. Yeah. I would have conversations with friends while I see something on TV. Oh man, I gotta write a song about that. It could be just a line I read in a book or something that I heard somebody say. I'm like, man, I need to write a song about that. And so I just was writing. That was just my normal creative process. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that it was going to affect the culture like that. I didn't know that it was going to create such a big conversation. And I didn't know that it would still have sort of like a controversial impact 20 some odd years later. You can't predict that, So it's very humbling for me to hear people, to express their feelings about the song like you did. Cause I'm like, wow, like we was just trying to make something cool.
Yeah. Now, on a big level, you ready for this? Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you 2 examples of how that song influenced mainstream. Yeah. Lil Wayne, How to Love, his video where he talks about this girl who grows up without a father and a toxic family home. And then so that video was inspired. Yeah. But not only that, the whole City High sound. Let's go to Trackmaster Caramel version. And when I hear that, I believe, in my opinion, that song, that sound that you guys had, may have influenced one of the biggest boy bands in the millennium. And that's
Can I talk?